I don't remember when I started noticing the small things about her. Maybe it was the way she always tucked her hair behind her ear before speaking, or how her laugh carried a quiet sadness that didn't belong to laughter at all. She was my best friend's mom. Mrs. Han to everyone else, but to me she was just her. That evening, the rain had softened everything. The city noise, the streetlights, even the sound of my own heartbeat. I'd stopped by to return a book her son borrowed from me. But when she opened the door, something felt different. Her hair was still damp from a shower, a loose sweater hanging slightly off one shoulder. She looked surprised, or maybe just tired in a beautiful, unguarded way. "Come in," she said, her voice steady but softer than usual. I hesitated. "He's not home yet, right?" She shook her head. "He's staying over at a friend's place. It's just me tonight." I should have left. Instead, I stepped inside. The house smelled like brewed tea and rain. She went to the kitchen, moving quietly, almost too carefully, as if she was aware that every movement mattered. I tried not to look, but my eyes kept finding her anyway. "You still drink coffee late at night?" she asked, setting 2 cups down on the table. "I shouldn't," I said, smiling faintly. "But I do." She gave me that knowing look, the kind that made me feel both young and seen at the same time. "Some habits don't change," she said. "Some people don't either," I murmured back. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, almost full, like both of us were trying to pretend we hadn't just crossed an invisible line. I noticed her hands then, resting near the teacup, fingers trembling just slightly. She caught me looking. "What?" she asked, half smiling, half defensive. "Nothing," I said. "Just, you seem tired." Her eyes softened. "You shouldn't worry about me." I looked at her, really looked this time. The kind of look that makes you forget the world outside the room. "Then stop making me care," I said quietly. She froze, just for a second. And in that silence, something cracked open between us. The kind of truth that doesn't need to be spoken to exist. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice broke somewhere in the middle. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" "Because I might believe you," she whispered. The rain picked up again, tapping softly against the window. Neither of us moved. Her hand brushed against mine. Accidental at first, then not. It was the smallest touch, but it burned through every rule we'd ever pretended to follow. I should have said something light, a joke maybe. Instead, I just sat there, memorizing the way her eyes shifted when she looked at me. Afraid, curious, alive. She finally stood up, breaking the moment. "You should go before it gets too late," she said. I nodded but didn't move. "Do you want me to?" I asked. Her lips parted like she had 1,000 reasons to say yes, and not one she believed in. Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the quiet like a knife. We both turned, startled, guilty, breathless. She glanced toward the door, then back at me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't say anything, please." And for the first time that night, I realized it wasn't just me who cared too much. The next few days, I tried not to think about that night. But every small thing, a scent, a voice, the sound of rain, dragged me back to her living room, to that single touch that felt like a confession neither of us wanted to admit. She hadn't messaged, and I hadn't dared to. It was safer that way, or at least that's what I told myself. Then one evening, a message arrived. "Could you drop off that charger your friend left at your place?" Just an excuse. We both knew it. When I got there, she was on the balcony, hair pinned loosely, a book resting on her lap. She looked like she'd been waiting for someone she wasn't supposed to. We sat outside, the city lights flickering below. Her son, my best friend, was out of town again. The air was still, except for the faint hum of the street below and the pulse in my throat. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly. I shrugged. "I just didn't think you'd text." "I shouldn't have. But you did." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that tried to hide something deeper. Her eyes were tired, not from lack of sleep, but from holding too much in. "You know," she began, voice quieter now, "after my husband left, I thought I forgot how to be close to anyone. People say time fixes things, but it doesn't. It just teaches you to pretend. She didn't look at me when she said it. I wanted to say something, to tell her that she didn't have to pretend with me, but I couldn't find the words. Maybe because I was pretending too. Pretending that I hadn't thought about her hands every night since. Pretending that what I felt was just concern. When she turned toward me, her face was closer than it should have been. There was a quiet tremor in her voice. "You're too young to understand this kind of mess." "Maybe," I said, "but that doesn't mean I don't feel it." Her eyes lingered on me, the kind of look that asks for permission and forgiveness at the same time. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The space between us felt like a fragile secret, one we were both protecting and destroying by staying silent. Then she laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it hurt. "You remind me of him," she said, "before everything fell apart. He used to listen like that." "I'm not him," I said, a little sharper than I meant to. She nodded. "I know." But her voice trembled just enough to make me doubt she believed it. The wind shifted, carrying a chill. Without thinking, I reached out, adjusting the shawl that had slipped from her shoulders. My fingers brushed the back of her neck. She didn't pull away. For a second, the world was painfully still. Her breath caught, mine followed. And when she whispered my name, barely audible, almost afraid, I knew this wasn't just a passing mistake. It was the start of something neither of us could walk away from. The next few weeks became a rhythm of hesitation. A look here, a silence there, messages that said nothing, but meant everything. She'd send me photos of her garden. The hydrangeas finally bloomed. I'd reply with something casual. "They're beautiful. You always make things grow." But under every word was a question we were too afraid to ask. And then, one Saturday evening, my phone lit up again. "Could you come by? The sink's leaking." I almost laughed. Of course she could have called a plumber. But I went anyway. When I arrived, she was barefoot, wearing a loose shirt that brushed against her thighs. The kitchen light glowed soft and warm, like it was trying not to intrude. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't know who else to call." "You could have called anyone," I said. "I didn't want to," she replied. And that was the truth neither of us could hide. I fixed the pipe easily. The leak wasn't serious, it never was. She stood near me the whole time, holding a towel she never used. Every time our shoulders almost touched, I forgot to breathe. When I stood up, she was close, too close. A drop of water clung to her wrist. Without thinking, I brushed it away with my thumb. She didn't move. Neither did I. The silence stretched like a held breath. Then the sound of keys, turning in the front door. We froze. Her son's voice came from the hallway. "Mom? You home?" She stepped back, fast, panic flashing across her face. "You need to go," she whispered. "I can't go out the front." Then the balcony. "Please hurry." My heart slammed against my ribs. I grabbed my jacket, slipped out the sliding door just as he stepped into the kitchen. From outside, I could still hear their voices. "Hey, you okay?" he asked. "Fine," she said, forcing a laugh. "Just fixing a leak." I pressed myself against the cold wall, the night air biting through my skin, every nerve alive with guilt and something darker, something that felt like need. When I finally climbed down and left, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from wanting her again even after almost being caught. The next day, she texted me once. "That can't happen again." I stared at the message for minutes before replying. "Then why did you call me?" No answer. Hours later, another text. "Because I missed the sound of someone caring." I didn't reply. Couldn't. I spent the night replaying every second of her voice, every breath we'd shared. A week passed. I tried to date someone else, someone my age. We went for coffee. She laughed too loudly, asked too many questions. But all I could think about was the quiet way Mrs. Han would say my name, the way she'd look away when she smiled. I ended the date early. She must have seen me that night from her window, because the next morning, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, she stood there, hair messy, eyes red. "I shouldn't be here," she said. Then why are you? She looked down, clutching her coat like it was armor. Because I hate the way it feels when you stop looking at me. We sat on my couch, not touching, not speaking. The air between us was electric. She whispered, "This is wrong." "Then tell me to stop," I said. She didn't. I leaned closer. Not enough to touch, just enough to feel the warmth of her breath. Her eyes fluttered shut, lips parting slightly. And then my phone buzzed. A message from her son. "Hey man, my mom's been acting weird lately. You've talked to her?" I turned the screen toward her. Her face drained of color. "He suspects." "Of what?" "Of everything," she whispered. She stood, pacing. "This is a mistake. You're young. You don't know what this means." "Don't tell me what I feel," I said, voice trembling. She turned sharply, anger and fear mixing in her eyes. "You think this is a story, but it's real. It has consequences." I rose from the couch. "Then stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you want me to say I love you." Silence. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. And then she stepped forward. Just once. Her fingers brushed my face, shaking. "I don't want to ruin you," she whispered. "You're the only thing that doesn't feel ruined," I said. For a moment, everything stopped. The ticking clock, the noise from the street outside. Her hand lingered at my jaw. Her breath hitched. I leaned in, barely an inch between us now. The air smelled like rain again. But before our lips met, she pulled away, almost gasping. "No," she said, turning toward the door. "Not like this." She left before I could say anything. That night, I sat on the floor beside the door, listening to the echo of her footsteps fading down the hall. Every part of me wanted to chase her, to make her stay. But I didn't, because for the first time I realized the real danger wasn't being caught. It was what would happen if we stopped resisting. I stopped hearing from her for almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks of unanswered texts, of walking past her house pretending not to look, of scrolling through old messages just to hear her voice in my head. I told myself I was fine, that it was better this way. But the lie cracked every time I saw her son's name pop up in my notifications. Every time he mentioned her in passing, "Mom's been quiet lately," or "She's been taking long walks alone." It made me wonder if she was walking away from me, or waiting for me to follow. One night I couldn't take it anymore. The rain had just started, soft and steady. I grabbed my jacket and went to her house. No message, no warning. The lights were on in the living room. She was standing by the window, her back to me. For a moment, I just watched. The curve of her shoulders, the stillness of her posture. She didn't look surprised when I knocked. Just tired. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I needed to see you." She hesitated, then stepped aside. I entered, dripping water onto the floor. "You shouldn't have come." "Then tell me to go." She didn't. We stood there, inches apart, the sound of rain filling the silence between us. "You've been avoiding me," I said. "I had to." "Why?" "Because this isn't fair to you. Stop deciding what's fair for me." Her voice broke. "You don't understand." "I do." "No, you don't," she snapped, suddenly louder. "You're young. You still think love is supposed to fix things. It doesn't. It only makes you remember what's missing." Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, I saw fear in them. Not of me, but of herself. "Do you regret what happened?" I asked quietly. She closed her eyes. "I regret needing it." "Needing me?" Her silence was an answer. Something in me twisted, anger, hurt, maybe both. "So that's all I am? A mistake you needed?" She took a slow breath, then stepped closer. "You're not a mistake." Her hand trembled as it touched my chest, just over my heartbeat. "You're the only thing that's made me feel alive in years." The confession hit harder than I expected. My pulse quickened beneath her palm. "Then why do you keep running?" "Because I don't trust what I'll do if I stay." We were close enough to feel each other's breath now. The air felt charged, dangerous. Outside, thunder rolled, deep and low. Her fingers gripped my shirt. If someone finds out, I lose everything. I whispered. And if they don't? She looked up at me, eyes wide, searching. Then I lose myself, she said. A beat of silence. Then I leaned in, slow, careful, as if asking permission. Her lips parted, her breath catching. And just as the space between us vanished, the front door opened. Her son's voice, sharp and unsuspecting. Mom? Why's the door unlocked? Her hand flew to her mouth. My heart stopped. We didn't move. We couldn't. Every breath, every heartbeat. Suddenly a secret hanging in the air. Her son's voice was too close. I could hear the shuffle of shoes, the clink of keys tossed on the counter. Mrs. Han's eyes widened, panic flickering across her face. She motioned for me to stay still, pressed a trembling finger to her lips, and whispered, "Go, back door." But before I could move, he stepped into the hallway. He saw us. Just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Her hand was still gripping my shirt. My face was still too close to hers. He froze. Then the confusion in his eyes hardened into something colder. "Are you serious?" he said, voice low but shaking. "Tell me I'm not seeing this." Mrs. Han pulled back fast, like she'd been burned. "It's not what you think." He laughed, bitterly. "Then what is it?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. There was no version of this that sounded right. "Get out," he said to me. "Please, just listen. Out," he shouted. And I saw tears in his eyes that he didn't want to show. Mrs. Han tried to reach for him, but he stepped away. "Don't. Just don't." I left without another word. The door slammed behind me, and the sound felt final. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Betrayal, disbelief, pain. He was my friend. The only person who never judged me when everyone else did. And now I'd destroyed that. I thought she'd text. She didn't. 2 days passed. Nothing. On the third night, she called. Her voice was raw, stripped of all the calm she used to wear like armor. "He moved out," she said. "He won't answer my calls." I swallowed hard. "Where is he staying?" "With his father." A pause. "He told him everything." My chest tightened. Everything. Her silence was enough. She came over that night. No makeup, no lies, just the look of someone who'd run out of places to hide. "I told him it was my fault," she said quietly. "That you didn't do anything wrong." "That's not true," I said. "I know. So why lie?" "Because I'm supposed to protect him, not you." Her voice cracked at the edges. "I ruined both of you," she whispered. "My son hates me, and you can't even walk down this street anymore." I wanted to tell her it was worth it, that I'd choose her again, no matter what it cost. But the truth was, I didn't know if I would. She reached for my hand, and for the first time, I pulled away. "I'll fix this," she said. "You'll see. He'll come around." "How?" "I'll tell him it's over." Something in me broke when she said that. Not because it was a lie, but because part of her meant it. She looked at me, eyes wet, voice trembling. "It has to end before it destroys you." I shook my head. "It's too late." She stared at me, silent for a long time, then whispered, "I know." And just like that, the woman who had once felt like home turned into someone I might never see again. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It came down in fine, relentless threads, turning the city into a wash of reflections. Mira stood under the flickering streetlight, her hands trembling around the umbrella she wasn't really using. She had been waiting, not for the rain to stop, but for him. Elias finally appeared from across the street, hair soaked, breath uneven, eyes searching for her like he already knew what she was about to say. "I told myself I wouldn't come," he said softly, stopping a few feet away. "But here I am." Mira laughed, though it broke halfway through. "And I told myself I'd leave before you did. But here I am." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of rain filled the silence between them. Steady, merciless, and strangely forgiving. Elias took a step forward. "Why did you stop answering my messages?" She hesitated, then looked straight at him. Because I didn't know what to say anymore. You kept asking me what I wanted. And I didn't know if you really wanted to hear the truth. He exhaled, eyes glinting under the streetlight. Try me. Myra's voice was barely above a whisper. I wanted to love you without being afraid. But every time I got close, I felt like you were already halfway out the door. I got tired of loving someone who kept waiting for a reason to leave. Elias closed his eyes, rain sliding down his face like tears that wouldn't show themselves. I wasn't waiting to leave, Myra. I was waiting for you to believe that I wanted to stay. That silence that followed was unbearable. Truth hung between them, sharp, fragile, and too late. She took a step closer. Then why didn't you ever just say it? He smiled, small and broken. Because I thought you'd hear it better if I proved it instead. But I guess I was wrong. The wind shifted. The streetlight hummed. And Myra realized they had both been fighting the same fear, just from different sides. He was afraid words wouldn't be enough. She was afraid silence would destroy her. Elias reached for her hand, fingers cold but steady. So what now? He asked. Her eyes met his, tired, honest, unguarded. Now we stop running from what scares us. A pause. Even if that means walking away. He nodded. As long as it's not out of fear. They stood there, rain falling harder, their hands still joined. No grand declarations. No perfect ending. Just two people finally understanding what the other had been trying to say all along. When they finally let go, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of clarity. Out of something that looked a lot like peace. As Myra walked away into the rain, Elias stayed where he was, watching her disappear down the empty street. For the first time in months, he didn't chase after her. He didn't need to. They had finally spoken, not with words, but with truth. And for now, that was enough. It had been 2 weeks since that night in the rain. The storm had passed. The city had gone back to its rhythm. The sound of vendors calling out, the hum of cars, the chatter of people who still believed in beginnings. Myra walked the same route every morning now, coffee in one hand, her other hand tucked into her coat pocket where her phone used to buzz with his messages. She thought she'd feel emptier, but she didn't. There was space now, not the kind that aches, but the kind that breathes. Sometimes she still replayed that last conversation in her head. The way Elias said, as long as it's not out of fear. The way he didn't chase her. How neither of them tried to turn goodbye into something prettier than it was. Love, she realized, didn't always end in togetherness. Sometimes it ended in understanding, and that was its own kind of mercy. She stopped by the park where they used to sit on weekends, the one with the cracked fountain and the stubborn pigeons. The bench was still there. The graffiti on the back still read, "Nothing changes if you don't." She smiled faintly at that. Maybe it was true. Maybe change wasn't something that happened to her. Maybe it was something she'd finally chosen. Across town, Elias stood at the pier, watching ships leave the harbor. He had started painting again. Not the kind of polished gallery work he used to do, but small, messy canvases filled with light and water and unfinished edges. He kept one painting aside, a woman with rain in her hair, standing beneath a flickering streetlight. He never showed it to anyone. He didn't have to. They had both learned something unspoken that night. That love wasn't meant to fix the cracks, but to remind you what kind of person you want to be when they show. And that realization, quiet, steady, human, was enough to make the days lighter. Sometimes, at sunset, Myra would catch herself looking east, toward the water, wondering if Elias was still there, if he'd look up at the same sky. She never texted. He never called. But there was peace in the not knowing, the kind that comes when you stop trying to rewrite what's already been written. Life moved forward, not in leaps, but in small, deliberate steps. A smile to a stranger, a slower sip of coffee, a softer heart, still learning to trust itself. And somewhere, in that quiet rhythm, both of them found what they had been reaching for all along. Not each other, but themselves. The rain didn't fall that evening. The city glowed instead, alive and forgiving. Sometimes love doesn't stay. Sometimes it just teaches you how to. X4